His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, the Honorable Cabinet Minister of Maharashtra, Shri Vinod Tavreji. If I read out all his portfolios, it will take at least 5 minutes because he's such a versatile and dynamic minister. And all the distinguished guests on the stage and in the audience. Nupur spoke very highly about me, but there's one thing that she mentioned in the beginning of her talk was about Sanskrit being the perfect language, being recognized in the world. And that's when I remembered a story of Panini, who gave us the Sanskrit language. So I thought I will share that with you before I start. So when Panini was a young boy, he went to an astrologer and showed his palm. And the astrologer, when he looked at the palm, said that, you have many good things, but one thing I don't see in your palm is any line of education. So you will do other things, but you will not be in this field. So Panini was a determined young boy. He went home and next day took a knife and drew a line on his palm and went and showed the astrologer the next day that now do you see the line? And he said that the power is not in what you are born with, but what you do with it. So in some ways, when people say that our culture is a defeatist culture, and this, what I think the Honorable Minister said, is what we were taught in school. Frankly, it was mentioned that, Indians, we will accept. If you are poor, you accept that you are poor, and that's how mera naseeb hai, and so on. But actually, if you go into the depth, I think the law of karma is in some ways the most positive thing that one can do. It is positive in the sense that it says that what we do today, we determine our future is in our hands to do that. And so that is the philosophy that we've followed in our business as well. And since I was asked to speak on how Vedantic principles in business, I thought I will start with some of the experiences that we've had. In the introduction to me, I was told, it was said that we have businesses across many countries, which we do. We employ maybe 3,000 people in the United States alone. So these are not people who know our philosophy. But yet I can say that all the principles that we apply in our business, which are derived from Vedic philosophy, are as applicable in the United States or in Europe as they are in India itself. And I want to begin with one basic quotation which inspires all of us in our business. And I want to share this with you. It is from the Upanishads. It says, we are what our deep driving desire is. As is our desire, so is our will. As is our will, so is our deed. And as is our deed, so is our destiny. So the key words I just want to say is that if we have a deep driving desire to do something or to achieve something, that becomes, and if we will that to happen, if we wish to really, if we will that to happen, and then if you do the deed, if you do that, then you will achieve you can fashion your own destiny. And these are not just words which are said out of the Upanishads. We have tried and we have implemented this and we believe in it, and believe me, we have been actually seen it before our eyes. I'm going to give you just one example, and there are several such. Because of shortage of time, I don't want to say that. We were traditionally in the textile business. It was in 1988 that we entered into the pharmaceutical business. This was the first time we entered in this business. We had no knowledge of it. But it was a business which we acquired. It was a small British multinational in India. And in terms of the ranking in the size of the business compared to all other companies, our rank was just 48. So we were pretty behind. But we, that time one is young, and I had read this famous shlok from the Upanishads. I said, let's implement it. So in one of the board meetings, I told our board that we will, by 2000, the next 10 years, get to within the top 5 from 48. We didn't know how it was to be done. But this was the deep belief that we had. And all over, my colleagues in the company all resolved that if this is true, if it's said in the Upanishad, it must come true. And we didn't know how, but believe me, in 2000, we did come in the top 5. So therefore, it is possible to do that. The other day, I was in a meeting with some friends of mine, and some younger children were also not young. They were like in the 20s with us, and we were talking. And my friends, so one of these younger kids was just talking about the Gita and how important it is. And then one of my friends said, who was older, he says, this is not meant, don't worry too much about the Gita, because, it's good when you're old. But, think about the setting of the Gita. I think the Lord is not, He knows, He's smart. The Gita is set in the battlefield. The Gita is given, the Upadesh is given to somebody who is in his prime of his youth. He's the most skillful archer in the world. He's probably 30 or somewhere. And he's being taught. So it's relevant for each one of us. And I see that it's so relevant in our business as well. I want to talk a little bit about how in the Gita it says you have to be a man of, what are the qualities of people who are men of wisdom and who are dear to the Lord. Talks about fearlessness, absence of fear. And this is one of those things that I have myself followed. When I was young, I have to be honest, I was fearful. What will happen? What will happen? So on. I had some personal tragedies. My father died all of a sudden when I was 24. My elder brother, who was in business, passed away when I was 29. Our business went through a difficult time, and so many things. But it was then when I realized the power of what the Gita says. That if you are fearless, and the Lord has said so in the Gita again, I think He says that I will preserve what you have, protect what you have, and provide what you need. If you start believing in that internally, and it gave me so much of strength that if there is somebody else who's doing your protection and providing, then why do you need to worry? And it really helped through all these challenging times. One of the most often quoted verses of the Gita talks about how you should not focus on on results but focus on action. And again, in our young days, we were taught that, this is such a thing. We have to be result oriented. How can you not have results? Otherwise, that's why India and we are all behind. But if one goes behind the meaning of it, and I have tried it again in my life, I can say, if we go behind it, we realize that what is result? It is just what you do as an action. It is just a consequence of your action. So if I was in school and if I was with you, Mr. Tavade, and maybe I would have thought I want to come first. I can keep dreaming of first. If I do nothing, I would have been where I was. But it is the action that's important. And I think that's what in the famous slok the Lord says. And let me tell you this. We were in the midst of a very large transaction with a large American company. This is probably the largest transaction in the pharmaceutical industry in India. And at that time, because they realized that we were selling a business to them, the buyers realized that this was very important for us. And therefore, during the process, they kept putting pressure on us that if you don't do this, you will not get the deal. If you don't do this, we'll walk away. And that's when I realized that what we need to focus on is not worry about whether they go or not. We need to focus upon what we do, is it right or wrong? And if you do the right action, the results will actually come. And this is what happened. At the end, we became friends, the deal was done, and 6 months later, he says, we didn't realize how we put so much pressure. We were hoping that you would give in, but you were the most, composed during that period, which helped you get so much strength, and we had to give in at every time. So it just shows that if you do the right action. One of the other things that I have learned from Radhanath Maharaj is to have the right sangat or the right association of people. We have seen so many people in business. You see that every day today there are scams in business. I think the reason for that is, one of the reasons is also that you do not associate with the right people. Association of the right people means those people who can tell you that this is right and that is wrong. And to encourage these people, I have found, has been a source of great advantage to me as well. The Lord talks about that we are just mere instruments and we are just mere trustees of the wealth that has been bestowed upon us. And therefore, in some ways, there is a role that we all have to play. If you have born a human being, it's been after several million births of other species. And we as human beings we are the only species which has the ability to discriminate between what is right and what is wrong. And thus, in our group, we believe that the purpose of our group is to do well and to do good and make a positive difference in the world around us. And that is, I think, all of us, in whatever way we are so privileged. We are privileged because first we are born a human being. We are privileged because we are educated. We are privileged because we have come from good families. We are privileged because we have jobs. Many of us have much more wealth than what we can ever consume. And thus, it is our duty to give back to society. And that's what we in our group strongly believe in. To give back to society in whatever which way we can do it. And finally, I want to say that, as I said, the Gita is probably the most positive book. It is, if ever anybody feels depressed, one is to just read it, because I think in every case I've seen, the Lord is assuring us, even if you're the worst sinner, if you go back to Him, He will take you. And as it said in the last verse, that if you believe that there is Krishna and if you can act like Arjuna, then victory, happiness, and prosperity will be with you. Thank you.